Some rivalries are built on mutual respect. Others are born from years of competition. But Brock Lesnar versus Frank Mir?
Wow!
This rivalry was forged in humiliation, fueled by ego, and finished in one of the most violent statements the UFC heavyweight division has ever witnessed. On July 11, 2009, the world watched Brock Lesnar walk into the Octagon with a single mission: erase the one man who embarrassed him on the biggest stage of his career. And when the cage locked, Lesnar didn't just win. He unleashed a storm of raw power and brutality that still echoes through a history. This is the night when Brock Lesnar finally settled the score and turned Frank Mir's world into a nightmare at UFC 100. In early 2008, Brock Lesnar entered MMA with expectations unlike anything the sport had ever seen. He wasn't just another athlete switching sports. He was a cultural phenomenon, a former NCAA wrestling champion, a 280-pound genetic anomaly, and a superstar who carried millions of fans with him into the UFC. But despite all the hype, Lesnar was still inexperienced. He had raw power, yes. Incredible athleticism, absolutely. But MMA is unforgiving. One mistake can end your night, or your career. At UFC 81, Lesnar made his debut against former heavyweight champion Frank Mir, a veteran with a dangerous ground game and technical submission skills. Lesnar came out like a wrecking ball, exploding forward with a takedown that shook the Octagon. He hammered Mir with massive strikes, overwhelming him instantly. For a moment, it looked like Lesnar would bulldoze his way to a flawless debut. But then, the moment that defined everything. In the chaos, Lesnar left his leg exposed, just long enough. Mir snatched it, locked in a kneebar, and forced one of the strongest men in combat sports to tap in under 90 seconds. The arena erupted. Lesnar looked stunned, confused, furious. People mocked him. Critics called him a fraud. Commentators laughed, saying he was athletic but clueless. And Frank Mir? He celebrated like he'd solved the biggest puzzle of his career. He beat the monster with technique. That humiliation, that taste of vulnerability, burned in Lesnar's chest for over a year, and he swore he would never forget the name Frank Mir again.
It was very humbling, my first fight in UFC against Frank, because I had prepared for the knee bar so many times, probably a million times. I had prepared to how to get out and counter what he got me in. It was like I was in practice drilling and how to get out of it. And so I was like, oh, this is happening. Yeah, that's good. I'm done. And I was like so mad at myself, and it just kind of built another thing that the people, ram down your throat to say you can't do something. Love those people.
They're the best.
Yeah.
After the loss, something awakened inside Brock Lesnar. Most fighters crumble after a humiliating debut. But Lesnar wasn't most fighters. He doubled down on training. He sharpened his technique. He studied every mistake he made. And then, he unleashed version 2.0. He dominated Heath Herring, tossing him around the cage like a ragdoll. He crushed Randy Couture, a legend, to capture the UFC heavyweight title in only his fourth professional fight. The fans who once mocked him now feared him. Meanwhile, Frank Mir was building momentum of his own. He scored the most impressive win of his career, a knockout over Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira, becoming the interim heavyweight champion. Mir was confident. He was sharp. He felt unbeatable. And he never stopped talking about Brock Lesnar. Mir said Lesnar was just a big man with no technique. He said the rematch would end exactly like the first fight. He said Brock couldn't handle real martial arts. Every interview, every press conference, every stare dash down. Mir kept pushing. And Lesnar kept absorbing. By the time UFC 100 was announced, the biggest event in UFC history, The rivalry had grown into something personal, something deeper than competition. This wasn't just a unification bout. This was a vendetta. Fight week for UFC 100 felt different. The media could sense the tension. Fans could feel the hostility. Frank Mir walked around with the confidence of a man who believed he had already won. He talked about Lesnar's lack of technique, his inexperience, his predictability. To Mir, this wasn't a dangerous fight. It was an opportunity to prove his dominance again. Lesnar, on the other hand, spoke very little. But when he did, every word was a threat. At the press conference, Mir tried to turn the mental game against Brock. He broke down technical scenarios, described how he'd catch Lesnar's limbs again, and smirked through every answer. But Lesnar didn't flinch. He didn't joke. He didn't smile. He simply stared with the cold intensity of a man who had already decided the outcome. At the weigh-ins, the energy erupted. Lesnar stormed forward chest first, towering over Mir. Mir smirked, almost mocking him, leaning into the stare-down with casual disrespect.
It's all over but the crying, baby. That's all I got to say. We'll see you tomorrow night.
The crowd went insane. The rivalry reached its boiling point. Two champions, two egos, two men who hated each other for reasons far beyond sport. And only one of them was about to walk out of the cage standing.
Paul began training in mixed martial arts at just 28 years old, and he looked. Our main event of the evening is brought to you by the only motorcycles worthy of being in the Octagon.
Follow my instructions. We're going to have a clean fight. Touch gloves, let's make it official.
When the bell rang, the entire world held its breath. This was the rematch everyone had waited for. The culmination of a rivalry built on chaos, humiliation, and pride. Lesnar didn't rush recklessly this time. He took his time. He measured Mir's movements with the patience of a hunter. And then, boom, a perfectly timed takedown that sent Mir crashing to the canvas. From there, Lesnar transformed into a living avalanche. Massive fists crashed down. Forearms smashed against Mir's skull. Every strike echoed through the arena like thunder. Mir tried to defend. He rolled. He reached. He looked for openings, but Brock had eliminated every window he once left open. Round 1 was pure domination. A preview of the storm to come. Round 2 began, and the nightmare intensified. Mir found a brief moment, one angle, one opportunity, and tried to lock onto Lesnar's neck. For a split second, fans saw hope. The same hope that ended the first fight. But Lesnar ripped free with terrifying strength. He pinned Mir down, trapped his arm, and unleashed a barrage of strikes so violent that even the commentators gasped. Mir's face began to swell. His breathing turned desperate. His body wilted beneath the weight of Lesnar's fury. And then, the referee stepped in. Frank Mir was done. Broken. Overwhelmed. Defeated. Brock Lesnar had reclaimed his pride and settled the score in the most dominant fashion possible. What happened after the fight became just as legendary as the fight itself. Lesnar didn't celebrate politely. He didn't bow. He didn't shake hands. He stood up, roared over Mir's broken body, and pounded his chest like a wild beast who had just reclaimed his territory. He shoved the referee, stormed around the cage, and absorbed the boos from the crowd like fuel. Then came the post-fight interview, one of the most infamous in UFC history. Lesnar grabbed the microphone and unleashed a tirade that stunned the entire arena. He insulted Mir. He mocked the crowd. He called out his sponsor. And he said the line that became instantly iconic. Frank Mir had a horseshoe up his ass, and I pulled it out.
Fight.
I love it! Keep going! Keep going! I love it! Frank Mir had a horseshoe up his ass! I told him that a year ago. I pulled that sumbitch out, and I beat him over the head with it.
You're not you don't like promoting fights very much.
I'm gonna go home tonight. I'm gonna drink a Coors Light. That's a Coors Light because Bud Light won't pay me nothing.
It was chaotic. It was raw. And it was Brock Lesnar, unfiltered and unapologetic, love him or hate him. Everyone watching knew one thing. This was the most dominant revenge the UFC heavyweight division had ever seen. In the end, the rivalry between Brock Lesnar and Frank Mir became one of the defining stories of the heavyweight division. It was a clash between brute force and refined technique, between evolution and experience, between anger and arrogance. Their first fight created the wound. Their second fight closed it with violence. At UFC 100, Brock Lesnar didn't just beat Frank Mir. He erased the humiliation. He answered every critic. And he left a mark on UFC history that still echoes today. This was the night Brock Lesnar finally settled the score.